following our calendar. And we're gonna be starting with the reading section. This week is gonna be all for the reading section. On Saturday, we finished the writing. We did a lot of practice. It was really nice. And today we're gonna move on to the reading section. All right, so we're moving forward with the reading section. Do you guys have any questions before we start? No questions? Yes, 1 second, please. Okay, guys, so the reading section, I mean, both the reading and the listening sections, they are not gonna be like the speaking or writing sections at all. Reading and listening both are multiple choice sections, which means that in the reading, as you can expect, you're gonna be reading certain passages, you're gonna be reading certain texts, and then answering questions about those texts. In the listening, same thing, right? You will listen to certain audios and then answer questions based on that. So it's gonna be every single question you have in the reading will be the same, multiple choice. You have four options, A, B, C, and D, and you need to choose the right one based on the text that you read. So let's see. Okay, the reading section. Yes. Now the reading structure is a bit, I wouldn't say complicated, but it's a bit different to understand than the writing and the speaking. So what happens? In the reading section, as I was telling you, you're gonna read a certain text and then answer questions about that text. Now, how many of these texts will you have? That is gonna be different every time. So you have two options. You can either have 3 of these texts or you can have 4, right? You're gonna have 3 sets or 4 sets, 3 passages or 4 passages. Now, why am I saying that? Why am I not giving you an exact number, like 3 or 4? The thing is that it's different for every.
I cannot listen.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Okay. Can you?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Sorry. Okay, so as I was telling you, that is going to be the thing. Okay, you will always have an extra set, and this could go in your reading section or in your listening. If it goes in the reading, you will have 4 passages, and if it goes in the listening, then you will only have 3 passages here in the reading. Do you guys have any questions about that? Okay. Now, the other thing I was saying is that everything will be academic, so you don't have anything like letters or diary entrances or like summaries. Everything is academic. You will be reading about science topics, about literature, about sociology, history. Those are really common topics, okay? Now, my best advice, I'd say to improve the reading, you need to work first on time management skills, because at least like for me, my biggest problem in the reading section was that I couldn't make it on time for the 4 passages, for the 3 passages. So you need to work on improving your time, and that just takes practice. Second, you need to improve your vocabulary. And in order to work on vocabulary, the best way to approach it is by reading. So it's kind of ironic, but you need to read to improve vocabulary. So you need to try to read these sort of academic articles and understand the words by context, because that's a skill that you're going to need in the TOEFL test, understanding words by their context. Try to read as much as you can. That's the best way that you're going to improve the reading section, your reading score. And obviously, we're going to
Something happened to your audio again, to your mic.
Okay, guys. Can you hear me now? Yes, okay. I think I'm going to have to join from 2 devices. I'm really sorry. Okay, so that is what I was telling you, so work on vocabulary by reading as much as you can, academic articles, and try to practice with a timer so that you can improve your time management. Okay? Now, going a little bit into the structure of the reading again, each passage that you read, do you guys know what a passage is? Does anyone know what a passage is?
Could be an article or a big text.
Exactly. That's a passage. It's like an extract from a book or from a longer text. But in this case, we can just call it article. Now, every article that you read, remember that you could have 3 or 4, will contain 10 questions. So you will have a total of 30 or 40 questions in the entire reading. Now, the interesting thing about the reading section is that you don't get a separate timer per passage. That means that they are not going to give you one timer per passage. What you have to do is manage your time the way you want. I mean, you can spend the entire time that you have for the reading in one passage only, if you're not careful with the time. So that is the thing. In total, you will have 54 if you have 3 passages, or 67 minutes if you have 4 passages. Okay? So if you have 3 passages, then you will have 54 minutes. And if you have 4 passages, you will have 76 minutes. Okay? That means that you should be spending 18 minutes per passage. That's the way that you should be organizing your time. But of course, ideally, you need to finish a passage as soon as you can. If you can do it in like 16 minutes or less, then that'd be great. So that at the end, you have time to review or something. Is that understood? Do you have any questions about the structure, how this works? Any questions about the reading in terms of its structure? Okay, guys. Now the best thing we can do here
I have
to
a
work
question,
on.
sorry.
Yes, Wilder, go ahead.
Is there a minimum score up to this part of the test?
A minimum score?
Yeah.
Like what do you mean?
To approve
pass
that
the
test? Yes.
No. Remember that every section is over 30 points. So, I mean, there's not like a minimum score to pass the reading section. Every section score is going to be added up, and that's going to make your total score. So if you have like 15 in the reading, then in 20 or 30 in the other sections, everything's going to be added up, and that will be your total score. If you have 0 in the reading, it's still okay, you know, and if you have 30 in the other sections, you can still have a pretty fair score. So no, there's no way that you can fail the test or fail the reading section.
Okay, thanks.
Any other question? Okay, guys. Now, the best thing we're gonna do, and I'm gonna give you tips as we go, so we're not gonna go over this. Okay. The best thing we're gonna do here, hang on, is look at the types of questions, because you have 10 different types of questions that go in the reading section. They're always the same, and you have the same strategies for each type. We have these 10 different types of questions. We have vocabulary questions. As you may guess, they ask you about a specific word and what it means. We have detailed questions that ask you like about the specific details of the paragraph or the passage. We have except types of questions that basically ask you to eliminate options. We will see. We have inference, we have function, paraphrase, reference, insert text, and summary or category at the end. So these are 10 different types of questions. We are gonna see the 10 types of questions throughout this week so that you guys know what those are and how to answer them, okay? But before we start, if you see this chart here, it says frequency of questions, right? Any idea, what does frequency mean? Does anyone know? What is frequency?
The number of times that it will appear this kind of question.
Exactly. Frequency means how often something happens, right? The number of times that it's repeated. So in this case, this chart shows how frequent these questions are, these type of questions are. So for example, vocabulary questions are the most frequent ones. You can have from 2 to 5 tops per paragraph. Do you remember how many questions we have per paragraph? I'm sorry, per passage. How many questions do we have per passage?
10.
10. So imagine if you have like 4 questions out of 10, that makes a lot of your score, you know? Now, obviously, you're not gonna have 4 questions in each of your passages. You can have 2 vocabulary questions in the first, 3 in the second, maybe 1 in the third, and another 2 in the last one. So, but I mean, it has been measured, and vocabulary questions are the ones that appear the most. Then the other most frequent one is detailed questions. And then all of these ones, except inference, function, paraphrase, reference, insert text, you can only get them at most 1 per passage. So you can have 1 except, 1 inference, 1 function, 1 paraphrase, 1 reference, 1 insert text. Okay, at most.
Now, the summary or category question, you always have it. It's always going to be there, and it's always the last question of your passage. Now, the thing is, even though it's just one question, it is worth a little bit more because it's long. It takes up more time. So this question, although you only have one of these, it could be a little bit more important than the others because it's worth like two of these other questions. Okay? Do you guys have any questions about this? Is this clear? Frequency of questions? Sorry. Okay, guys. So we're gonna start then by looking at vocabulary questions. And in order to do that, I was seeing if we can answer a practice test from the ETS. Let me see. Yes. Now, in order to do this, in order to start looking at the types of questions, we're going to be working with a practice set from the ETS itself. So this is available online, and it is a passage from the ETS website. Now, why am I choosing to do this? The thing is, and this is like another tip, when you guys are practicing, you want to make sure that you practice as realistically as you can. Like, for example, you know how in the speaking section or in the writing section, I told you, so you're going to read this, and this is always going to have 3 reasons, and you have to compare them with that. Now, that structure is true, but that is always only going to happen when you practice with official or good material. Because sometimes when you practice with like any type of material that you can find online, the structure and the content or the format is not necessarily similar to the TOEFL itself. So try to practice using the official material, right? Or maybe, try to go to the ETS website and find all the material that you can have there, because that is going to be very similar. So that's what we're going to be practicing with this passage here, okay? Now, the thing is, in the test, you will first have the passage, and you are supposed to read it first. What do you guys think? Do you think it's better to read the passage, the entire passage first, and then answer the questions? Or do you feel that it would be better to go to the questions and then read the passage, go to the question? Like, read the paragraph that corresponds to the question. Do it one-on-one. What would you guys say is better? What do you think about that?
Personally, I prefer to read everything first, then go to the questions and read again to see what questions go to which paragraph.
Okay, great, William. Now, that is the way that it should be, ideal. Now, what happens is that some students struggle a lot with time. And if you are not a fast reader, then you're going to take maybe 5 minutes reading. And that's 5 minutes out of the 18 that you have. So if you read the entire thing carefully, like word by word, you're going to have less time to answer the questions. You know, because remember that you only have 18 minutes per passage. So that is the thing, right? If you read, then you're going to understand better. You're going to get the ideas better, but you will have less time to answer the questions. And if you don't read, then you have the risk of not understanding pretty well. Now, my advice is try to do something in between. So I wouldn't recommend reading word by word and trying to understand all of the details, because that's not the way to go. Personally, what I did in the test was this. I have the passage here, and I read the first sentences of each paragraph. So I obviously read the title first, because that gives you a good idea of what it's about. And then you should be reading the first sentences of each paragraph. So I'm going to read the first sentence here, the other one here, and the other one there, and just like that. I didn't read everything. Okay? Now, when I say the first sentences, I don't necessarily mean only the first sentence, but I read until I got an idea of what the paragraph was about. So if by reading the first sentence, you don't have an idea yet of what this paragraph is going to be about, then you can read a little bit more, or you can even scan the paragraph and read maybe the last sentence, you know? So that is the best strategy, I would say. Try to scan the paragraph by paragraph. Don't scan the entire text, but try to scan the paragraph and just try to get a hold of what the idea behind this paragraph is. So what is this first paragraph about? What is the second paragraph about? The third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and that's it. Okay, guys? That would be my suggestion. And that's gonna save you time, and also you are gonna understand what every paragraph was about, because that's the most important thing. Any questions about that strategy? Is that okay? All right, so that's what we're gonna do. First thing, we're gonna analyze the title. It says The Rise of Teotihuacan. So what do you think this is gonna be about? What does it sound like?
History.
History, probably. What else?
Different culture or
I'm sorry?
a different culture history or
Okay.
article maybe.
Yes. Great. This is probably culture. What does the word rise means?
That has grown.
Exactly, that has grown. So it's like the growth of Teotihuacan, the development of Teotihuacan, how this culture, this city, these people grew, right? Or how they developed. Probably it's gonna be about something like that. And Teotihuacan sounds like something in Mexico, right? It sounds like that, but we don't know. Now, what we're gonna do is we're gonna scan this first paragraph. Please try to do it on your own. Don't read the entire thing. Don't focus on the details when you're reading at first. Please skip the details. Try to tell me what the main idea of this paragraph first, this first paragraph is. Okay, I'm gonna give you like 10 seconds. So please scan this paragraph. Okay, guys. So what is that paragraph about?
About the Teotihuacan story and where it's located. And about
Exactly.
its culture.
Great. So we know already that Teotihuacan is a city, and we have some details in here, right? It's the introduction program. So they're giving us the location, the history, when it started. It's a bit of context, we'd say. What about the second paragraph? Please take a moment to scan the paragraph. Read the first sentences. Okay. So what is the second paragraph about?
About the impact this culture have in Mexico.
Are you sure it's about the impact?
So.
It's just how did this tremendous development take place, and why did it happen in the Teotihuacan Valley? Among the main factors are Teotihuacan's geographic location, the obsidian resources, and so on. So this is about the factors that influence the development of Teotihuacan, right? It's like a list of the factors. So these are the factors that led to the development of Teotihuacan, and you have a few things. Is that okay? All right, now what about this third paragraph? Please take a moment to scan it. Okay, guys, so what was it about?
About how the volcanoes helped this culture to survive against their rivals.
Great, I love that. So yes, it's about how the volcanic eruptions that happen around the town help Teotihuacan arise. Great. Now please take a moment to scan the fourth paragraph. Okay, guys, so what is it about?
About obsidian.
Exactly. So paragraph number 4 is about natural resources, right? And how it also helped the city, and specifically obsidian. Now let's look at paragraph 5. So what is it about?
About the prosperity of this culture.
Exactly. So this is just like, this is a little bit more general, right? Because they talk about different things. But in general, it's about how prosperous this city was. And finally, let's take a moment to read the final paragraph, paragraph 6. Okay, so what is it about?
About the relationship about with obsidian with the word Teotihuacan.
Yes, sort of. It is about relationships. I think it's more about the relationship between obsidian and everything else, right? Population growth, irrigation, how everything was connected and how everything helped the Teotihuacan grow. So they had a good relationship. Every factor that was mentioned before was related to each other, and that helped the Teotihuacan emerge. So that's it. That's what I would recommend you guys do. Because at the end of the day, let's face it, when you're reading the questions, you're gonna need to, even if you read carefully, you will always need to go back. And that takes some time. So don't focus in the beginning on the details. You shouldn't focus on understanding every single word by word, but just having an idea of what it's about and what is said in every paragraph. So we already know this is about the growth, the development of Teotihuacan. We have a few a few details that serve as an introduction in the first paragraph. We have some list of factors in the second. The third one is focusing on volcanic eruptions. The fourth is about natural resources, obsidian. The fifth one is obsidian and prosperity. And the sixth is the relationship between everything, right? That is what you should do. Just have an idea of what it's about, and that will help you a lot. Any questions then before we start?
This kind of text is 6 paragraphs, for example. All the passages are the same length, or they are more or less?
Yes, they are more or less the same. Like as an average, they have 700 words. So this, I guess it's like 750, maybe 650. But as an average, you'll have something like this. Sometimes you have longer paragraphs, but you have fewer paragraphs. You can have 3, but very long paragraphs. Or you can have more, but shorter than this. Okay, guys. All right. So we're going to start with the first type of question, which is vocabulary questions, we said, right? The most frequent ones. Vocabulary questions. Now, these questions, they ask you, basically, they take a word from the passage and they ask you to find a synonym of the word. So, for example, they can say the word good in paragraph 1 is closest in meaning to, and you have a certain options. You need to choose the one that is closest to that word. So basically, you need to choose a synonym. Now, what I personally like about these questions is that you don't necessarily have to read the entire paragraph. You don't have to read everything to answer these questions. So they are really good in terms of time. You shouldn't be spending too much time in these questions. Let's see, for example, question number 2 of this passage. It says, the word ingenuity in paragraph 2 is closest in meaning to ambition, sincerity, faith, and cleverness. Now, what do we do? The first thing you do when you get the question is ask yourself, do I know the word? Do I know what ingenuity means? And can I choose the best word, the closest word? So do you guys know what ingenuity is among these options? Do you know the word? Which one would it be, Sergio?
The last one.
Cleverness, okay. What about you, Wilder? Do you agree?
Yes, the same.
Oh. So in that case, as you can see, how sure are you, Sergio and Wilder? Are you 100% or like 90 and above % sure?
100%.
100%, okay. In that case, if you guys are 100% sure that you know the word, then that's it, right? You just choose the correct answer and you move on. You move to the next question. There is no need to go back to the paragraph and check. If you are really sure, then choose the answer and continue. In this case, for example, if you guys are sure, actually option D is the correct choice. Cleverness is a synonym of ingenuity. Now the thing is, what happens if you guys don't know the word? Only in that case, if you really don't know the word, then you need to go back and check. Or if you are like 50% sure, then you still need to go back. Okay, then I'll give you a few tips on how to do this. Now, let's say that we don't know this word. We don't know what ingenuity means. Then what we're gonna do is we're gonna go back to the paragraph, which I have it here. Let's see. Okay, here. So I have the question and the paragraph in here. Now there are different strategies that you can use to answer the question if you don't know the word. In this case, for example, what can we do? We know the word, right? Ingenuity. The first thing that you guys need to do is find the word in the paragraph. Remember, this is about paragraph 2. So you're only gonna read paragraph 2. The word is here. Now, what you need to do is think of how this word relates to the the main idea of the entire passage. So do you guys remember what the main idea of this passage was? I'm sorry, of this paragraph number 2. What was this about?
Development of the culture.
Exactly. More specifically, it was about the factors that influence the development of the city, right? And we have a list of different factors. For example, we have geographic location, the obsidian, the potential for extensive irrigation. All of those were factors that influenced the development of Teotihuacan. And as a matter of fact, the ingenuity and foresightness of Teotihuacan's elite was one of those factors that influenced the development of Teotihuacan, right? Now that is the context. You need to ask yourself, how does this word ingenuity relates to that main idea? And in this case, the word ingenuity, the ingenuity of the elite, was one of the factors that led to the development of the city. That is the context. And based on that context, you need to come up with an answer. You need to be eliminating the ones that don't feel so right until you come up with fewer options, right? Another thing you can do is try to see and compare with the other things or the other elements that you have in the paragraph. For example, here it says, the ingenuity and foresightness of the Teotihuacan's elite. So it goes together, ingenuity and foresightness. Do you guys know what foresightness is? Any ideas on what it could be? Okay, so foresightness, we can actually break this word down because it's a compound word. You know this ending ness, it's a suffix. That's another thing, you know, to study vocabulary, learning prefixes and suffixes is a fast way to improve vocabulary, to learn vocabulary. Now, what does this word or like this suffix ness means? For example, we have it in cleverness as well. What does that mean? Can you think of another word that has the same suffix? Can you think of another word with the same suffix? Ness? For example, loneliness, right? Loneliness. What does loneliness mean? What is loneliness?
To be alone.
Exactly, to feel lonely, right? It comes from the word lonely. Not necessarily alone, but it's a feeling. So when you are lonely, you're experiencing loneliness, right? So it comes from the adjective lonely. And lonely means solo, right? So loneliness is, in Spanish, how does it translate?
Soledad.
Exactly. So basically, this ness doesn't really mean anything. It means that it is a noun, right? Because this is an adjective. And in order to turn this adjective into a noun, we're adding that ness. Lonely, loneliness, right? Same thing as clever, cleverness, right? When you say that person is really clever, that's an adjective. You're describing something. And when you say cleverness, you're using a noun. So basically, that ness only tells you that that is a noun. Now, what about foresight? What does sight means? Do you guys know what sight means?
Like vision.
Exactly, like vision, right? You can think of different phrases or words, like for example, love at first sight, right? Amor a primera vista. So sight has to do with vision, with see. It comes from the verb see action. And for, can you, this is actually a prefix. This is a prefix, this is a suffix. So for, can you think of other words that start with the same prefix? For, like for example, the word forecast. Do you know what it is? When I say the weather forecast? Or maybe foreshadowing. Any ideas on what that for could mean?
It's like to look,
To do?
no, to look or like to anticipate.
Yes. To anticipate, exactly. Because forecast is a prediction, right? The weather forecast is the weather prediction. So that word for basically means before. It comes from before. So foresightedness means to be able to anticipate, to see before it happens, to see the future, kind of to predict. That's foresightedness. You know, the ability to prevent what's based on what you think is going to happen in the future. You know, so based on that, if you can like look at the other words as well, then, and if you know what the other words mean, so you know that foresightedness is like the ability to prevent, you know, in that case, then that can help you to come up with the answer for ingenuity. Because you know that the closest to that one, for example, I will already eliminate the option sincerity and faith. Why? Because I don't think that those are as strong factors as the other ones to influence the development of the city. You know, this isn't really about like values, the values of the city. This is more about the factors that influence the development. So I would already eliminate B and C. And, you know, thinking of the word foresightedness, then it has to do with being intelligent. It has to do with being smart, with being able to be creative, prevent, take preventions. So it's probably gonna be cleverness, right? So those are like some things you can do. Think of the context, how these words or this word relates to the overall context of the paragraph. Is that okay? Any questions about this example so far? Okay, guys. Some other things you can do. For example, let's say, I don't know. Let's take a look at this one here. The question itself says the word preposterous is closest in meaning to. So do you guys know what this word means without reading anything? Do you know what it means? Okay.
To reign over something.
To reign?
To go over,
To go over.
How do you say, to have power over something?
Okay. Are you 100% sure?
Perpetuarse, I think is in Spanish.
Are you sure? Completely sure?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so if you're completely sure, then which one would you choose?
Appropriate.
Okay. All right. All right. In your case, then you would just choose that one and continue. Now I'm gonna give you guys one tip. Honestly, out of the most of the words that you're gonna find are gonna be not verbs but adjectives. Like 90% of the words that you have in vocabulary questions are adjectives. So if you feel that this is a verb, then I don't know. Another thing that you can do is like, if you think that this is a verb and you look at the questions, strict, ridiculous, intense, all of those are adjectives, right? They are describing something. So maybe my parents are really strict. What somebody did was ridiculous. The way you're acting is a little bit intense. So in all of those words, I'm describing something. Those are adjectives. Now, do you think that this word is the only one that's going to be a verb? So probably not, right? So look at the options too and see what types of words you have, because I don't think that this is a verb. Now, let's say that you're not totally sure. You're like, it could be appropriate, but I'm not completely sure. So in that case, we're going to read, and it says, maybe Sergio, can you please read the paragraph?
Many laws are still technical on the books in the United States, but are not enforced by any authority and seem preposterous in modern society. In Oklahoma, it's technically illegal to spit on the sidewalk or for men to wear boots to bed.
Okay, thank you, Sergio. Now, what do you think? Now that you've read, which one would you choose?
Now I think it could be ridiculous.
Ridiculous, right? Do you agree, Sergio? Do you have another option?
I think the first one.
Strict. Okay. I honestly like your options. I like that you're not choosing intense or appropriate. Now, what do we do now? If you think about it, again, we look at the context, right? We say that we are talking about some certain laws that are still written, that are still technically being applied on the books, but they're not enforced, right? That people don't follow them, and that nobody, any authority, nobody's gonna like go to jail because of this, right? Nobody really cares. They're not enforced by any authority. Now, these laws, according to the paragraph, they seem these that we don't know in modern society. So people think that these words are these, right? This adjective. Now we have an example, right? These are examples, even though we don't necessarily have the transition. For example, in Oklahoma, it is technically legal. We agree that it's an example, right? These are examples of preposterous laws. So based on these examples, we can try to get to the answer. So it says that one example of a preposterous law is that it is technically illegal to spit on the sidewalk or for men to wear boots to bed. So these two are examples of preposterous laws. So do we think that these are appropriate laws? Probably not, right? I don't think it's going to be appropriate to forbid men to wear boots to bed. Are these intense laws? I don't know if intense would be the right word, right? Intense is not a good word to describe a law. Are they really strict laws, though? Or are they ridiculous laws? Strict is something that is actually very correct, right? Maybe a little bit exaggerated, but correct. Ridiculous is something that doesn't make sense. So what do you guys think? What do you think, Sergio?
Yes, makes sense.
It makes sense, right? So ridiculous would be the right. So in that case, you can go with that. You can use examples that you have to try to get to the answer. Always check if you have any examples that can lead you to the answer. That would really help. Now another thing, let me share this. Okay. Okay. Okay, for example, this one. It says the word viscous is closest in meaning to tasty, thick, solvent, or acidic. Do you know the word?
Viscoso.
I'm sorry?
I think it's
Viscoso,
viscoso.
Yes, okay. So which option would it be?
I think it should be thick.
Okay. Do you agree, Sergio? Yes, right? Great. So in this case, you know the word and also by context, right? Because you know that if you think about it, you have this word while here. So that word while shows contrast. That means that this idea has to be opposite to this idea. So water has a low resistance to motion and flows easily should be the opposite of these molasses that are viscous, right? So they should be something that does.
Your audio is down again. Or your mic. I think it's your internet connection.
Okay, guys, hello? Yes, okay. Sorry. So that's what I was saying. You just first think of the word, see if you know the word, and if you're 100% sure, if you can think of the word in context, then go with your gut, your first choice. And if not, you're not totally sure that you know how to use the word, then there's no way that you're gonna go to the answer without reading the paragraph. So you gotta go back to the paragraph, look for the word, and understand how it works within the context that it's given. Guys? Any questions then about these vocabulary questions before we go?
No, but can you listen to me?
Do you have any questions, Winder?
Yeah. Can you share us these PowerPoints or the first one you showed us about that part?
No questions?
Do you listen?
Okay, guys. Then please
Okay.
don't forget to fill out today's survey before you go. Okay. And I'll be seeing you tomorrow. We're gonna practice and do more questions. Thank you so much, guys. See you tomorrow.
Bye, miss.
Bye-bye.